The vastness of space was alive with whispers of war. Two mighty alien civilizations, the Zorn and the Krell, stood on the brink of a conflict that threatened to tear the galaxy apart. Their massive fleets, numbering in the millions of ships, prepared for a showdown that would decide the fate of countless worlds. Amidst this brewing storm, a small army emerged from the shadows. They called themselves the Terran Expeditionary Force, or TEF for short. Their fleet was tiny compared to the giants about to clash. Just a few hundred ships crewed by a mix of species from across the galaxy. Most alien races laughed at the TEF's audacity. What can these insignificant bugs hope to accomplish? Sneered a Zorn admiral, his tentacles waving dismissively at the holographic display of the TEF fleet. Little did they know that the true strength of the TEF lay not in numbers, but in the minds commanding their ships. On the bridge of the TEF flagship Horizon, Captain Sarah Chen stood tall, her dark eyes scanning the star map before her. Next to her, her alien second-in-command, a towering insectoid named Zix, clicked his mandibles nervously. "Captain," Zix chittered, "are you sure about this? We're vastly outnumbered." Sarah's lips curved into a small smile. "Numbers aren't everything, old friend. We have something they don't." "And what's that?" Zix asked, his compound eyes blinking rapidly. "Humanity," Sarah replied simply. Across the TEF fleet, humans held key positions of command. They were a relatively new species on the galactic stage, but they had proven themselves to be master strategists and tacticians. The TEF had recruited the best and brightest Earth had to offer. As the massive Zorn and Krell fleets began to move into position, the TEF made its first move. Sarah's voice rang out clear and confident over the comms. "All ships, execute Operation Firefly." The TEF fleet split into dozens of smaller groups, each one heading towards a different star system along the borders of Zorn and Krell space. To the alien observers, it looked like madness, spreading their already thin forces even thinner. On a Krell command ship, General Groknak laughed, his scales rippling with amusement. "Look at these fools. They scatter like terrified prey animals." But Sarah and her fellow human commanders had a plan. Each small group of TEF ships positioned themselves near populated planets or vital supply lines. They weren't looking for a direct confrontation. Not yet. Days passed, and the Zorn and Krell fleets clashed in a series of brutal skirmishes. But something strange was happening. Supply ships went missing. Communication relays mysteriously failed. Small, undefended outposts suddenly found themselves under attack from an unseen enemy. The TEF was waging a war of 1,000 cuts, bleeding the two superpowers slowly but surely. In her quarters aboard the Horizon, Sarah pored over intelligence reports. The humans had studied the Zorn and Krell for years, learning their weaknesses, their blind spots. Now, they were exploiting every single one. A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. It was Admiral San, the overall commander of the TEF. The old Arcturian's face was creased with worry. "Captain Chin," he said, his voice low, "I must confess, I had my doubts about putting humans in charge of our strategic operations, but what you've accomplished in just a few days, it's remarkable." Sarah nodded respectfully. "Thank you, Admiral. But this is just the beginning. The real test is yet to come." As if on cue, alarms blared throughout the ship. Sarah rushed to the bridge. Admiral San close behind. On the main view screen, a massive Zorn battle group loomed. "They had found us," Zix said, fear evident in his voice. Sarah's eyes narrowed as she studied the enemy formation. A plan was already forming in her mind. "No, my friend," she said, a hint of steel in her voice. "We found them." She turned to her crew, a mix of species from a dozen worlds, all looking to her for guidance. "All hands, battle stations," Sarah ordered. "It's time to show the galaxy what humanity can do." As the TEF ships formed up to face the oncoming Zorn fleet, Sarah allowed herself a small smile. The aliens might laugh at their small army now, but soon they would learn. When humans were in command, size didn't matter. Brains beat brawn every time. The real war was about to begin. The Zorn battle group loomed large in the viewscreen of the TEF horizon. Captain Sarah Chen's mind raced with possibilities as she assessed the situation. Her crew, a mix of various alien species, looked to her with a mix of fear and hope. Zix, Sarah called to her insectoid second-in-command. "What's the status of Operation Firefly?" Zix's mandibles clicked as he replied. "All teams report success, Captain. The Zorn and Krell supply lines are in chaos." Sarah nodded, a small smile playing on her lips. "Perfect. Now for Phase 2. She opened a channel to the entire TEF fleet. "All ships, execute Maneuver Hydra." The small TEF fleet suddenly split apart, each ship moving in a seemingly random direction. To the Zorn, it looked like panic, prey scattering before the predator. On the Zorn flagship, Admiral Kraz laughed, his tentacles writhing with glee. "Look at them run. These primitive species are no match for the might of the Zorn Empire." But Sarah and her fellow human commanders had a different plan in mind. As the TEF ships scattered, they left behind small, undetectable probes. These probes began to emit signals that mimicked the energy signatures of much larger ships. Suddenly, the Zorn sensors lit up with hundreds of new contacts. It appeared as if a massive fleet had materialized out of nowhere, surrounding the Zorn battle group. Confusion reigned on the Zorn bridge. Admiral Kraz's laughter died in his throat as he stared at the sensor readings in disbelief. Meanwhile, the real TEF ships had regrouped behind a nearby moon. Sarah's voice crackled over the comms. "All ships, prepare for attack pattern Omega." In a flash, the TEF fleet emerged from hiding. They struck hard and fast, targeting key systems on the Zorn ships before they could react to the sudden assault. As the battle raged, news of the TEF's success spread across the galaxy. On distant planets, alien leaders watched in amazement as the tiny human-led fleet ran circles around the mighty Zorn. On the Krell homeworld, Supreme Commander Vexthor called an emergency meeting of his war council. "How is this possible?" he growled, his reptilian eyes narrowing. "How can such a small force stand against the Zorn?" An aide nervously stepped forward. "Supreme Commander, we've analyzed the TEF's tactics. It appears that their success is due to humans." Humans. Vexthor spat the word like a curse. "Those primitive apes from that backwater planet." The aide nodded, bringing up a holographic display. "Yes, sir. But these primitive apes have demonstrated remarkable strategic and tactical abilities. Our analysts believe they are the key to the TEF's effectiveness." As if to prove the point, reports began flooding in of TEF strikes against Krell outposts. Using the same hit-and-run tactics, the human commanders were keeping both the Zorn and Krell off balance. Back on the horizon, Sarah Chen stood amidst the controlled chaos of the bridge. Sweat beaded on her brow as she called out orders, coordinating the complex dance of ships and firepower. A nearby console exploded in a shower of sparks as a Zorn blast rocked the ship. Sarah barely flinched, her focus unwavering. "Captain," Zix called out, "the Zorn flagship is attempting to retreat." Sarah's eyes gleamed. "Not so fast. All ships, execute pincer movement. Let's show them why you don't underestimate humanity." As the TEF ships moved to surround the fleeing Zorn, Sarah allowed herself a moment of reflection. She thought back to the day when alien recruiters had first come to Earth, seeking strategic minds to help in their galactic conflicts. Many had laughed at the idea of primitive humans having anything to offer advanced alien civilizations, but Sarah and her fellow commanders had proven them wrong. Time and time again, the battle raged on, a testament to human ingenuity and adaptability. The aliens might have superior technology and numbers, but they were learning a harsh lesson. Never laugh at a small army, especially when humans are in command. As the Zorn flagship finally surrendered, Sarah knew this was just the beginning. The real challenge lay ahead, not just winning battles, but bringing peace to a war-torn galaxy. And humanity was ready to show the universe what they could do. The news of the Terran Expeditionary Force's victory over the Zorn battle group spread like wildfire across the galaxy. On countless worlds, beings of all shapes and sizes huddled around holoscreens, watching in awe as the small fleet defied the odds again and again. But for Captain Sarah Chen and her crew, there was no time to rest on their laurels. The war was far from over. On the bridge of the TEF horizon, Sarah studied a holographic map of the sector. Red dots representing Zorn forces clustered to their left, while blue Krell formations gathered to their right. "They're trying to box us in," Sarah muttered, her brow furrowed in concentration. Zix, her loyal second-in-command, clicked his mandibles nervously. "What's our move, Captain?" A slow smile spread across Sarah's face. "They think they have us trapped. Let's show them how wrong they are." She opened a channel to the entire TEF fleet. "All ships, prepare for Operation Trojan Horse." Across the fleet, human commanders sprang into action. They had drilled for this, practiced it countless times. Now, it was time to put theory into practice. The TEF ships began to power down, appearing to drift helplessly in space. To the approaching Zorn and Krell fleets, it looked like easy prey. On the Krell flagship, Supreme Commander Vexthor watched with gleaming eyes. "At last, we have them. These human tricks end now." Similarly, on the Zorn command ship, Admiral Kraz's tentacles writhed with anticipation. "Crush them." Showed no mercy to these upstart apes. Both massive fleets moved in, their weapons hot and ready to fire. But as they drew closer, something unexpected happened. The seemingly dead TEF ships suddenly came to life. But instead of fleeing or fighting, they began to emit a strange, pulsing energy field. On the horizon's bridge, Sarah's voice rang out clear and strong. Now, in that instant, every TEF ship activated a device that the human engineers had been working on in secret. It was a revolutionary piece of technology that could, for a brief moment, alter the properties of space itself. The energy field expanded rapidly, engulfing both the Zorn and Krell fleets. For a few crucial seconds, their shields flickered and failed, their weapons went offline, and their engines sputtered to a halt. In that moment of confusion, the TEF struck. With surgical precision, they targeted key systems on the enemy capital ships, crippling them before they could recover. Panic spread through the Zorn and Krell ranks. Nothing in their vast experience had prepared them for this. How could such a small force wield such devastating power? As the battle raged, Sarah received an urgent communication. It was from the Galactic Council, the governing body that had long stayed neutral in the conflict between the Zorn and the Krell. The face of High Counselor Xyra, a being of pure energy, appeared on the screen. "Captain Chen." Xyra's voice echoed. "Your actions have not gone unnoticed. The Council requests an immediate audience with you and your human commanders." Sarah exchanged a look with Zix. This was unexpected, but it could be the opportunity they'd been waiting for. "Understood, High Counselor," Sarah replied. "We'll be there as soon as we wrap things up here." As the transmission ended, Sarah turned back to the battle at hand. The Zorn and Krell fleets were in disarray, their perfectly laid trap turned against them. "All ships," Sarah commanded, "execute final phase of Operation Trojan Horse. Let's end this quickly." The TEF ships moved with deadly efficiency, disabling the remaining enemy vessels without destroying them. It was a display of mercy that confused the Zorn and Krell even further. As the last enemy ship powered down, a cheer went up across the TEF fleet. They had faced impossible odds and emerged victorious. But Sarah knew this was just the beginning. The summons from the Galactic Council could change everything. It was time for humanity to step onto the galactic stage and show the universe what they were truly capable of. As the horizon set course for the Council's neutral space station, Sarah couldn't help but smile. The aliens had laughed at their small army, But they weren't laughing anymore. The age of human influence in galactic affairs had begun, and nothing would ever be the same. The TEF Horizon glided smoothly into dock at the Galactic Council's space station. It was a massive structure, a gleaming silver wheel spinning slowly in the void. Ships from 100 different species crowded the docking bays, a testament to the Council's far-reaching influence. Captain Sarah Chen stood at the head of a small delegation of human commanders. Despite their recent victories, she couldn't help but feel a twinge of nervousness. This meeting could determine the fate of not just the TEF, but of humanity's place in the galaxy. As they stepped off the ship, they were met by a delegation of council representatives. The aliens were a diverse group, some tall and willowy, others short and stocky, and some that seemed to defy description altogether. A being that appeared to be made of shimmering crystal stepped forward. "Welcome, humans," it chimed in a melodious voice. "I am Zalthrix, aide to the High Counselor. Please, follow me." As they walked through the station's winding corridors, Sarah could feel the stares of countless alien species. Some looked curious, others wary, and a few openly hostile. They were led into a vast circular chamber. At its center stood a holographic projection of the galaxy, stars and planets swirling in a mesmerizing dance. Around it sat the members of the Galactic Council, beings of immense power and influence. High Counselor Xyra, the being of pure energy Sarah had spoken to earlier, floated at the head of the assembly. "Captain Chen." Xyra's voice resonated through the chamber. "We have called you here to discuss the actions of your Terran Expeditionary Force." Sarah stepped forward, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "High Counselor, esteemed members of the Council, we are honored to be here." A Zorn representative, his tentacles writhing with agitation, interrupted. "Honor? You speak of honor after the devastation you've caused." "Devastation," Sarah replied calmly. "We have disabled ships, yes, but we've taken great care to minimize loss of life on all sides." A murmur ran through the assembled council members. This was not what they had expected to hear. Sarah continued, her confidence growing. "We entered this conflict not out of a desire for conquest, but to bring peace. The war between the Zorn and the Krell has destabilized entire sectors of the galaxy. We aim to end it. And how does a small fleet of primitives plan to accomplish this?" A Krell counselor hissed. Sarah smiled. It was time to reveal their true strategy. With a gesture, she activated a small device she had brought with her. A holographic display sprang to life, overlaying the galactic map at the center of the chamber. "This," Sarah explained, "is a complete map of both Zorn and Krell supply lines, communication relays, and strategic assets." The council members leaned in, their eyes widening as they took in the wealth of information before them. "In the past weeks," Sarah continued, "we've not just been fighting battles. We've been gathering intelligence, analyzing patterns, and identifying key weaknesses in both empires." She manipulated the display, highlighting specific points. "Here, here, and here. These are the linchpins holding both sides together. With precise, coordinated strikes, we can bring both the Zorn and Krell to the negotiating table in a matter of days." The chamber erupted in shocked whispers. What the humans had accomplished was unprecedented. High Counselor Xyra's form pulsed with interest. "You've done all this with your small fleet. How is this possible?" Sarah stood tall, pride evident in her voice. "It's not about the size of our fleet, High Counselor. It's about how we use it. Humans have a long history of asymmetric warfare, of finding creative solutions to seemingly insurmountable problems." She gestured to her fellow commanders. "Each of us brings centuries of human military theory and practice to bear. We've studied your conflicts, your tactics, your technology, and we found ways to counter them all." The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. These humans, these newcomers to the galactic stage, had accomplished in weeks what the council had failed to do in years. High Counselor Xyra's voice was thoughtful as it broke the silence. "It seems, Captain Chen, that we have much to learn from humanity. Perhaps it's time for a new approach to galactic peace. As the council members began to discuss among themselves, Sarah allowed herself a small smile. The real work was just beginning, but humanity had proven its worth. The galaxy would never be the same again. The days following the Galactic Council meeting were a whirlwind of activity. With the Council's blessing, the Terran Expeditionary Force put their grand strategy into action. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the TEF horizon, watching as her carefully laid plans unfolded across the galaxy. "Status report," she called out, her eyes fixed on the holographic display before her. Zix, her loyal second-in-command, clicked his mandibles excitedly. "All teams report success, Captain. Operation Checkmate is proceeding exactly as you predicted." Sarah allowed herself a small smile. "Excellent. Let's see how our friends in the Zorn and Krell empires are handling it." The display shifted, showing real-time footage from across contested space. Zorn and Krell fleets, once proud and seemingly invincible, were now in disarray. The TES precision strikes had crippled their ability to coordinate effectively. But it wasn't just military targets the humans were hitting. Sarah had insisted on a more holistic approach. TEF ships were also delivering aid to worlds caught in the crossfire of the long-running conflict, winning hearts and minds across the galaxy. On a Zorn-controlled planet, locals watched in amazement as TEF shuttles dropped much-needed supplies. "But I thought humans were the enemy," one confused Zorn citizen muttered to another. Similar scenes played out in Krell space. The reptilian warriors, known for their fierceness in battle, found themselves at a loss when faced with human kindness. Back on the horizon, Sarah received an urgent communication. It was from Admiral Kraz, the Zorn commander who had once laughed at the human-led fleet. "Captain Chen." Kraz's tentacles writhed nervously on the screen. "We request a ceasefire. Your tactics are unlike anything we've ever encountered. We cannot continue this conflict." Sarah nodded solemnly. "Understood, Admiral. We accept your ceasefire. Prepare a delegation for peace talks." No sooner had she ended that call than another came in. This time, it was Supreme Commander Vexthor of the Krell. "Human," the reptilian leader hissed, his pride clearly wounded, "your species has proven formidable. The Krell Empire is willing to negotiate terms of peace." Sarah couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. "We're glad to hear it, Supreme Commander. We'll arrange for neutral ground to begin discussions immediately." As the calls ended, a cheer went up across the bridge. Years of conflict, decades of suffering, were coming to an end thanks to human ingenuity and compassion. But Sarah knew their work was far from over. "All right, everyone," she called out, "let's not get ahead of ourselves. We've won the war, now we need to win the peace." In the days that followed, the galaxy watched in amazement as human diplomats took center stage. They mediated between the Zorn and Krell with a skill that belied their species' relative youth in galactic affairs. On a neutral planet, under the watchful eye of the Galactic Council, Sarah sat at a table with Admiral Kraz and Supreme Commander Vexthor. The tension in the room was palpable. "Gentlemen," Sarah began, her voice calm but firm, "we're here to end a conflict that has caused untold suffering. But more than that, we're here to build a lasting peace." She laid out a series of proposals, each carefully crafted to address the root causes of the Zorn-Krell War. Trade agreements, cultural exchanges, mutual defense pacts, the humans had thought of everything. As the talks progressed, both Kraz and Vexthor found themselves impressed by the humans' thoroughness and fairness. Here was a species that could have easily taken advantage of their weakened states, but instead chose to build bridges. Word of the peace talks spread across the galaxy. On countless worlds, beams of all species watched their screens in disbelief. The mighty Zorn and Krell empires, brought to the negotiating table by a handful of human ships. It seemed impossible. Yet as the days passed and the new galactic order took shape, the truth became undeniable. Humanity, once dismissed as primitive, had changed the course of galactic history. In her quarters aboard the horizon, Sarah looked out at the stars. The galaxy was entering a new era of peace and cooperation, and humanity, against all odds, was leading the way. Months had passed since the historic peace talks between the Zorn and Krell empires. The galaxy was still adjusting to the new era of peace, and at the center of it all stood humanity. What had started as a small, laughable fleet had become the catalyst for monumental change. On the bustling planet of Nexus Prime, a neutral world known for its diverse population, a grand ceremony was taking place. Representatives from every major galactic power had gathered to officially recognize the peace accord and to honor those who made it possible. Captain Sarah Chen stood on a raised platform, flanked by Admiral Kraz of the Zorn and Supreme Commander Vexthor of the Krell. The sight of these once bitter enemies standing side by side was a powerful symbol of the new galactic order. High Counselor Xyra floated above the crowd, its energy form pulsing with approval. Today, Xyra's voice resonated. We celebrate not just the end of a war, but the beginning of a new age of cooperation. And we owe this future to the ingenuity and courage of humanity. A murmur of agreement rippled through the assembled aliens. Many of them had once scoffed at the idea of humans playing a significant role in galactic affairs. Now, they watched in awe as Sarah stepped forward to address the crowd. "Thank you, High Counselor," Sarah began, her voice clear and strong. "But the credit doesn't belong to humanity alone. It belongs to every being who chose peace over conflict, understanding over prejudice." She gestured to the diverse crowd before her. "Look around you. See the incredible variety of life our galaxy holds. Each species brings something unique, something valuable. It was only by recognizing and respecting these differences that we were able to end the war." As Sarah spoke, holographic displays activated around the plaza, showing footage from the conflict. But instead of battles, they showed moments of cooperation. TEF ships delivering aid, human diplomats mediating disputes, and soldiers from different species working together. "We humans," Sarah continued, "are newcomers to the galactic stage. We arrived with fresh eyes, unbound by old grudges or assumptions. This allowed us to see solutions where others saw only problems." Admiral Kraz stepped forward, his tentacles moving in a gesture of respect. "The humans taught us a valuable lesson," he admitted, his translator conveying the humility in his voice. "True strength lies not in the size of one's fleet, but in the power of one's ideas." Supreme Commander Vexthor nodded in agreement, his scales shimmering in the sunlight. "We laughed at their small army," he hissed, "but we should have been in awe of their great minds." As the ceremony continued, delegates from various worlds approached Sarah and her fellow human commanders. Many were curious about Earth and its history, eager to learn from the species that had accomplished so much with so little. The young Zorn, her tentacles still soft with youth, shyly approached Sarah. "Captain Chin," she asked, "will you teach us? Will humans share their knowledge with the rest of the galaxy?" Sarah smiled warmly. "Of course," she replied. "That's the beauty of peace. We can all learn from each other, grow together. The age of isolation is over. The age of collaboration has begun." As the day wore on, Sarah found a quiet moment to reflect. She thought back to the beginning of their mission, when the TEF was dismissed as insignificant. Now, humans were being hailed as peacemakers and visionaries. But Sarah knew that with respect came responsibility. Humanity's actions would be watched closely from now on. They had earned their place in the galactic community, but they would need to continue proving their worth. As the suns of Nexus Prime began to set, casting a warm glow over the plaza, Sarah rejoined her crew. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities to bridge the gaps between species. But for now, they could enjoy the fruits of their labor. A galaxy united, laughing together instead of at each other. The small army had not just won a war. They had won the hearts and minds of an entire galaxy. 5 years had passed since the historic peace ceremony on Nexus Prime. The galaxy had changed in ways few could have imagined. The Terran Expeditionary Force, once a small and laughable fleet, had grown into the Galactic Peacekeeping Force, GPF, with members from hundreds of species working side by side. On the newly established neutral space station, Harmony, Captain Sarah Chen, now Admiral Chen, stood before a massive window overlooking the swirling colors of a nearby nebula. The station was a marvel of cooperative engineering, combining the best technologies from across the galaxy. "Admiral," a voice called. Sarah turned to C6, her old friend and now chief diplomat of the GPF. "The delegates are ready for the final session." Sarah nodded, straightening her uniform. "Let's not keep them waiting." They walked together through the station's gleaming corridors. Aliens of all shapes and sizes nodded respectfully as they passed. The sounds of 100 different languages filled the air, all working together in harmony. They entered the Grand Assembly Hall, where representatives from every corner of the galaxy had gathered. At the center table sat former enemies, Zorn, Krell, and many others, now united in their pursuit of lasting peace. High Counselor Xyra, still serving as the head of the Galactic Council, called the session to order. "Today, Xyra's energy form pulsed. We finalized the Galactic Concordat, a document that will ensure peace and cooperation for generations to come." Sarah stepped forward, her voice calm but filled with pride. 5 years ago, we ended a war. Today, we begin a new chapter in galactic history." She activated a holographic display, showing the text of the Concordat. It was a masterpiece of diplomacy, addressing everything from trade agreements to cultural exchanges, from shared defense to environmental protection. "This document," Sarah explained, "is the result of countless hours of negotiation, compromise, and mutual understanding. It represents not the victory of one species over another, but the triumph of unity over division." As Sarah spoke, she couldn't help but remember how it all began. A small fleet, laughed at by mighty empires. Now, those same empires looked to humanity for leadership and inspiration. Admiral Kraz of the Zorn, his tentacles now adorned with symbols of peace, spoke next. "When we first encountered humans, we thought them weak. We were wrong. They showed us that true strength lies in bringing people together, not tearing them apart." Supreme Commander Vexthor of the Krell nodded in agreement, his scales shimmering with iridescent patterns of harmony. "The humans taught us to look beyond our differences, to find common ground. This Concordat is the fruit of that lesson." As the delegates began to sign the document, a young Zorn-Krell hybrid child, a sight unimaginable just a few years ago, approached Sarah. "Admiral Chen," the child asked, eyes wide with curiosity, "will you tell us the story of how humans brought peace to the galaxy?" Sarah smiled, kneeling down to the child's level. "It's a story about looking at problems in new ways," she began. "About understanding that the size of your fleet matters less than the size of your ideas. But most importantly, it's a story about realizing that we're all in this together." As Sarah spoke, more children gathered around, their parents watching with approval. This, Sarah realized, was the true victory. Not just ending a war, but creating a future where the next generation would grow up knowing peace and unity. The signing ceremony concluded, and cheers erupted throughout the station. Beings who once would have destroyed each other now embraced as friends and allies. Sarah stood back, watching it all with a sense of wonder. They had come so far, yet she knew this was just the beginning. There would be challenges ahead, new conflicts to resolve, new misunderstandings to overcome. But as she looked out at the sea of faces, tentacled, scaled, furred, and everything in between, Sarah felt a surge of hope. Humanity had found its place in the stars, not through conquest or domination, but through understanding and cooperation. The galaxy had laughed at their small army. Now it celebrated their big ideas. And together, united in diversity, they would face whatever the future held. As the celebration continued around her, Sarah turned her gaze to the stars visible through the station's windows. Out there, new adventures awaited, new civilizations to meet, new challenges to overcome. And humanity, once the newcomers, would help lead the way. The age of conflict was over. The age of exploration and unity had begun.